in partnership with Aotearoa Volunteering New Zealand. My name is Kelsey, and with this series, we intend to support you with all of the amazing mahi that you do by inviting along thought leaders in the volunteering space to have really insightful kōrero over your lunch break. And I am super excited today to be joined by Gavin Findlay. So, Gavin joined the New Zealand Food Network as a CEO from a varied career spanning the travel, aviation, business, and logistics sectors. As a former officer in the Royal Air Force, Gavin has spent time working with vulnerable communities and individuals across all corners of the globe, an experience which still today continues to fuel his passion for making a difference in and for New Zealand's food insecure communities. So, welcome, Gavin, and thank you so much for joining us to chat today.
Kia ora, Kelsey. Glad to be here.
Amazing. So, just quickly before we kick things off with the discussion, for those of you who aren't aware of Rosterfy, we've been around for around 8 years now, and we're used by over 3 million volunteers and staff worldwide. We've recently ticked over 100 million hours of volunteering powered by Rosterfy across 35 different countries, and we're all about connecting communities to events and causes that they're passionate about. Here's just a quick sample of some of the customers that we work with worldwide, supporting them with their volunteer experience end to end. And the fact that we are so highly configurable is really our point of difference and is what makes us super effective at supporting our partners and cutting down on their manual processes and spreadsheets so that they can focus on scaling and better connecting with their volunteers. These are also some of more of our partners, but just in the sporting and event space as well. But I'll come around at the very end with a QR code if anyone would like to learn a little bit more about Rosterfy post this webinar. But let's kick off with the discussion because we only have 30 minutes or so. So a little bit of housekeeping is that there is a questions box at the top right-hand corner. And so please feel free to drop in any questions there for Gavin, and we will answer as we go and also have a little session at the end as well. So Gavin, can you give us a quick overview of the New Zealand Food Network and its mission?
Yeah, sure, Kelsey. Well, our mission is to get food to where it's needed most. Very simple. New Zealand Food Network was started at the onset of COVID. We did see a need for an organisation that could work at scale across the country where there was going to be a real challenge in people accessing sufficient nutritious food during the pandemic. And whilst the food rescue sector was established regionally, there was nothing nationally. So in the space of 12 weeks, we built the business from a blank piece of paper to fully operational, which was I call organised chaos. So finding a warehouse, refitting a warehouse, office space, personnel, IT systems, operational systems, food hubs and food donors, and bringing that all together within the COVID environment as well. So that's kind of where we started. Our mission is exactly the same as it is today as it was then, to support those communities across the country that are really struggling to have access to food.
Amazing. I bet it's felt like a really surreal time. COVID already felt so surreal, let alone in working at such rapid pace to sort of scale and bring together a business like this as well. It must have just been incredible to look back on.
It is. I mean, coming from a military background, in my early career, you're presented with a situation and you just get on and take it head on. And fortunately, I was able to work with a great team and pull a team together that had the same sort of mentality of we're here to help those that are really going to struggle. So let's just get down and get it done. And partnerships throughout the whole 5 years that we've nearly been going have been extraordinarily key to what I see as success. It's not an area that you want to be a growth industry and people needing some food support, but it certainly has been over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, and the team and our partners, and that's everybody across our whole organisation, have been key to that.
Amazing. So what role does corporate volunteering, what role does your corporate volunteering model play in helping you to achieve that mission? Let's start there.
Really key. Right from the word go, we knew that with the seasonal nature of some of our products, you get massive volumes at times, and in those early days, and then times where you didn't get much food. So we knew that scaling our workforce in terms of a paid workforce is really, really challenging to be able to do that and manage that. So again, within my previous role as CEO of Kiwi Harvest, within the food rescue sector, volunteering was prevalent. It was part and parcel of the landscape. So we knew that we needed to engage with volunteers. And what we found out in the early days was, yes, during COVID that we couldn't have any. We had a core group of, I think, 15 or 20 that were allowed to be essential services volunteers to work us through. But as soon as COVID was over, those organisations that we had dealt with from a food perspective said, we want to help. We really want to help you. Yes, we'll give you food, but how else can we help you? And we developed the corporate volunteer program, as it's evolved into today, and it's been absolutely key to us achieving the volumes that we need to achieve. And to give you some context, it's about 30 tons of food every working day we have to get out the door, and that's about 60 to 65 pallets of food. And yes, some of them are whole pallets of one item, but many of our products are pick and pack, or food parcels that have been manufactured, that are bulk bins of fruit and veggies that have to be repacked into manageable volumes. So they are as integral a part of our business as our employees.
Wow. Amazing. And with your background in workforce analysis and project leadership, how do you think about designing that volunteer journey so that it's as seamless and motivating as possible within that corporate program? Because I think that's something that some of our organizations struggle with, is just creating that experience that, is as seamless as what their regular volunteers might experience.
Well, you kind of use three words there that we will hone in on: experience, seamless, and I think meaningful. So most volunteers volunteer at places that they're passionate about, or
Yeah,
they maybe know nothing about and other people are going along. We tell our story well, in terms of what the impact that you will be having, and having that
yeah,
journey of experience, I think, is really good. Having post messaging, not just getting volunteers in, but the impact of what they did afterwards, we found really, really meaningful. We set them challenges. We go, well, the previous organisation did this with the same number of volunteers. Can you better it? So, over the last 2.5
unifying it.
years, we've certainly had people and come
Yeah,
back and back. We want to do better than we did the last time. We want to do better than our organisational partners, etc. So, and all, as well as having a really fun and engaging, they have to be engaged in what they're doing, and we've got a few little differences that I think that we've done in our
yeah.
area to really bind them together and make it a good experience.
Yeah, I think what you were saying, whenever I've had, volunteering experience, and I have volunteered a couple of, sort of one-off shifts at, for similar organizations to you over in Australia as well. That measurable impact, like being able to leave and them saying, you've packed this many meals and it's going to go to this many families, and actually leaving with that as an impact, understanding, as a volunteer, understanding what your impact is really powerful. I've felt that in my own experiences with volunteering. So that really resonates. Um, Looking at, I suppose tools that might support you in this, whether it's apps or automated platforms, have you explored or implemented many of them, especially when it comes to, I suppose, supporting that communication with volunteers and coordination as well?
Well, I mean, obviously, when you start out with a blank sheet of paper,
Yeah.
literally a blank sheet of paper,
Mhm.
and kind of writing down and coordinating. And
Yeah.
over the years, we evolved spreadsheets, as many organizations do, to understand, the the impact of the numbers involved in terms of volunteer hours. But
Yeah,
certainly when we came across like the Rosterfy, we really wanted to lift that experience productively and engagement wise.
yeah,
So from a productivity perspective, our volunteer coordinator, it's probably 10% of the time now that she did used to spend on managing that. So in terms of automated emails and information that you can provide to an organization and individuals before they come here,
yeah.
so they're really kind of fully ready. And it certainly allowed us on the back end to understand much better in terms of the numbers of volunteers required to meet our targets, where we have set targets that we have to meet, and an understanding where our whole workforce needs to be, including our volunteers, has just
Mhm.
been able to be elevated with having Rosterfy on board.
Yeah, so that scale piece, I suppose, of taking you from one place to being able to grow significantly. We often find that, especially when organisations are launching corporate volunteering programs as well, you just need that additional extra support, because it's just going to support your managers with so much of the admin and allow them to really figure out what's actually working on the ground and connect with those volunteers in person, which even for a corporate volunteering program is really important. You've still got that real human nature of people on the ground really talking and connecting and representing your brand.
Absolutely. We've warehouses can be quite dull places. So
Yeah.
one of the key things for us was to enliven it. So we engaged a local artist who developed a mural for our wall. When I say
Wow.
mural, this thing is probably 30 meters by 20 meters, scaled up from an A4 sheet of paper, and it represents who we are in terms of our mission and our componentry. And any time the volunteers come in for the first time, suddenly their eyes kind of light up, and that
Wow.
plus they have control of the boombox, so they get to control the music in the warehouse, and
Wow.
and
Yeah.
you set them, who's in charge of the music today. And so again, they create their own fun environment, and as well as what they're doing, it has to be engaging. They've got to be memorable. That's the one thing with volunteering. For whatever an individual gets out of it, it has to be memorable.
Yeah. Absolutely. And within looking, I know you mentioned obviously scaling with Rosterfy. And with that, what role does the data play in terms of the data you're getting back and how you look at it to manage and improve that volunteer experience, and then therefore continue to grow your corporate program?
Well, for us, in terms of where we want to go to, we've really got to understand our labour force well, and I include, volunteering is a key component of our labour force. Not only that, from a reporting perspective,
Hmm.
being a tier two not-for-profit accounting entity, we've got to stand behind our numbers well. If you do it more and more now, organisations are getting challenged on their statements of performance. So if
Hmm.
you go, yeah, we did 10,000 volunteer hours last year, auditors will go, show me how, show me individual on this day, what have you done, right, drilling it right down to you actually standing behind the numbers that you are stating that you're doing. Having a system like Rosterfy is just allows us almost at the press of a button to
Yeah.
generate and understand that. But also, it can identify, patterns and key areas where we think we actually do need, and then we can really target those particular areas with extra shifts and on extra particular days. As our fruit and veggie seasons go up and down, we can manage that workforce a lot better.
Awesome. And how do you ensure that the process is clear and engaging from that first click? So obviously you've spoken about how when they're in, you've got a number of strategies to keep them really excited and really invest in your mission and really recognize their impact from when they walk out. But when they're sort of making that first click to when they show up, whether that's corporate or whether that's just your general volunteers, how do you hold that sort of engagement and that excitement before they even arrive?
It's information and communication, understanding one, the location. Simple things like parking in Auckland
Yeah,
can be a real challenge and a real pain point for many organisations. Having the ability to clearly articulate, almost from the time that you turn into our driveway, exactly where to go, exactly what to do, who to contact, having all that comms piece and information up front and readily available. We've had very, very few instances where there's been challenges and people not knowing where to come to, or coming in late. So I think being very, very clear, around timings as well, because again, if you've got activity in a productive warehouse, you want to have that activity to be seamlessly incorporated into your day to day. So again, the team have worked really, really hard. We've had failures on the way, of course, in
yeah.
terms of not having that right. But with Rosterfy, it's just another document that you can put up there, or a change, and the information is there instantaneously out to your volunteers who are coming in. So yeah, I think the key thing is being extraordinarily clear and concise on the day, without it necessarily being draconian, but
Mhm.
in order to get the best out of what the volunteer is going to experience on the day, they have to have that information.
And I suppose with using Rosterfy as well, your team would have been able to set up exactly how they'd like it. So the communication is always very similar. They're always getting the same, volunteers are always getting the same experience of knowing what to expect. It's all automated, all the information's included. So there's not as much room for human error in there as well when things get really busy on your floor for your volunteer
Yeah,
managers to think, I've forgotten to go out to that group, or I've gone out later than I wanted and they've missed the boat there.
yeah, absolutely. And I think being a warehouse, health and safety is key and paramount, as in many organisations. So having that upfront information there, having the information there doesn't substitute on the day instruction, because when you're in an environment, you can see on paper what you need to do. It then
Yeah.
becomes alive when you're in that environment. But it's a lot easier to absorb the on the day information if you've had some pre-reading about what potentially is going to happen.
Absolutely. Um, you sort of mentioned this at the beginning around, I think, aligning on values and goals across your stakeholders and some of the corporates that you have, that have really supported your mission along the way. But how important do you think this aspect is, especially when you're looking to scale your volunteer program, really finding those corporate partners that align with your values and goals as well?
It tends to be a combination of kind of word of mouth and our general marketing and branding. Yes, we've got a lot of volunteers from our partners already, so our food businesses that work within us, and they come and they can see their products going out into the community. That's great. But banks and engineering businesses, councils, most organisations now do have volunteer corporate programs in their businesses. And certainly what I've found over the years, when you give the choice to the individual of what to do and when to do, I know from a bit of research, only about 35% of the individuals will take up that volunteering day. When you have a mandated or a partnership that you have as an organisation, and you're going, right, there's 12 people going to here, it's almost 100% take up. So creating that
Wow.
partnership with an organisation, and then having that communication and ability to manage that, has really, it's really elevated the breadth of organisations that we are actually working with beyond the food space.
And do you find that you have to push to those organizations what the value of doing, providing that for their team and encouraging their team to come along together is, or do you feel like it's something that they usually just get on board with pretty quickly?
You only have to do it once, because
Yeah,
once they're in here,
yeah,
yes, you can. and everybody's got their own different wants and likes in terms of organisations they want to support. But feeding yourself is a basic human right, and if for those that really struggle to do that, most people can relate to that, even if they've never experienced it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kiwis in general, I've been here 28 years now, and we've got the she'll be all right mentality. It doesn't really happen in my backyard. That's probably across the board that there aren't many people who would go without food in New Zealand. Yet, it's probably 1 in 10. Our latest survey had just over about 500,000 people at some point every month can't put a bit of food on their table. So
Wow.
it's bigger than you think, and as I say, once people come in and see the scale and see the impact that they can have, that's it. They're sold. But
I
that's
know
that's
from
what
my
I definitely see that as our job, using the tools that we have to engage up front, and
Mhm.
then manage that, but also experience what we've got here.
Yeah, I think my own experience across Rosterfy, we are part of the Pledge 1%, so we do a lot of volunteering back in our organisations that we either partner with or just other organisations that we've found or people are interested in. And I just find that the days where we do have 12 or 15 of us going along to
Yeah,
support something. It's probably been, if I look back across my career of all the team building I've done, the volunteering aspect of it has been my favorite in terms of team building. Like I've had a lot more conversations with people across the teams that I might not have interacted with as much because they're in a completely different department, and you walk out feeling such a sense of accomplishment, but also value and impact as a team across
yeah.
something different than what your usual mission is at your organization. So I think it's just yeah, really communicating what that value actually is outside of the value, obviously, helping out a non-for-profit and people that are in need, but actually how it can actually strengthen those teams is really meaningful as well.
Yeah, well, there's a great saying by the great rugby player Sir Michael Jones, the Iceman, when he was asked why he was so brutal on the rugby field, and he was brutal. With a
Yeah.
little twinkle in his eye, he said, "Well, it's much better to give than to receive." Now, Sir Michael is now runs him and his wife run a fantastic organisation called the Village Trust in Mangere. So he
Oh yeah.
constantly gives back. He's constantly so
Yeah.
when there is, I don't think there's any greater sense than seeing the joy or the impact that you can have on someone else's life. It's
Absolutely.
I've had a few fantastic occasions throughout my life that'll live with me forever with that impact. So
Yeah. Amazing. In terms of strategies, you've kind of mentioned a couple of what has worked really well for keeping volunteers engaged and then coming back, and you've mentioned a couple that you have on site, like I suppose the gamifying at the competition, um, the making that whole experience, the mural, all of that. And I think a lot of them would be quite unique to, I suppose, what you're achieving with New
mm.
Zealand Food Network. Is there anything that's probably a bit broader that you'd recommend to other non-for-profits or other volunteer organisations that are listening that have corporate volunteer programs? Like any sort of takeaway tips
the,
around those
the
strategies?
the biggest thing is really articulate your story.
Hmm.
Really articulate your story, and if you've got a platform, that whatever platform you're utilizing, and whether it be any of your social media, and you can direct them to where you're directing to a platform. Got to tell your story. It's got to be meaningful for someone to, pick up the phone or to log on to a portal to want to come and work at your organisation. So understand the impact that you're having, and if you can do that well,
Hmm.
it's like this may sound callous, but you're selling yourself. It's a sales. You're in sales in terms of
Yeah,
wanting people to come and help you. So
yeah,
think of it like that. It's not a bad thing to tout your own business, to go, look, we are doing a really good job. Come and help us. That's not a
Yeah.
bad thing at all. And so if you can do that well and then have the tools for that engagement and maintenance of that relationship, you'll do well.
Amazing. We've got a couple of questions that have just popped up. We've got one here from Angela. How do you keep the corporate engaged from the initial inquiry and ensure that they do go on to volunteer and follow through? Often corporates have other priorities which come up and override their intention to volunteer, and they just don't follow through.
It certainly is a good question. Have a set journey from initial engagement to when they step in the door, and that could be if there's not a confirmation of booking or a confirmation of engagement, have it every week that you kind of go back to them, and even to the point of if you're not wanting to engage with us, just let us know and we won't bother you again, because then you can go on. But I do find that if you have that story up front and someone has taken the time to come and engage with you, as long as you have those touch points and understand what that journey is for them. We had this morning, a volunteer organisation didn't turn up this morning. They said they couldn't, but they can come in tomorrow. We happen to have one slot. That's going to happen. But it's just about managing those issues as they arise.
You just cut out for a moment. You just cut out for a moment there, but I think it might have been our internet. It looks like we're back up and running. Hopefully, I got most of your answer there. We have one more question as well from Cheryl. How do you manage the relationship between one-off volunteers, so the corporate teams, and your longer-term volunteers?
Both have a really strong part to play. We've got about 20 or 30. Our volunteer numbers from last year to this year have kind of gone from about 685 to 950.
Wow.
And of that, we've probably got about 50 core individual volunteers. It is a different relationship. It is a kind of, we have, about 40 or 50 companies that will come back once or twice every year. That is a slightly different relationship to the volunteers that are coming every week. They become more like family and become real advocates. That's the one thing that I would say with most volunteers, especially your individuals who work a lot. Ask them to be advocates. They're your biggest marketing tool out there, those that come back time and time again. So if everybody has a part to play, you've just got to find that balance between ensuring you have it's a lot easier to maintain a contact than to get a new contact. So work on that.
Awesome. We're kind of coming towards the end of our session now. We've had a couple of questions already. Incredible insights from you today, Gavin. Thank you so much for joining this session. I think just your experience and your wealth of knowledge, especially when it comes to corporate volunteering, because this is a question we often get asked all the time, and I think it's an area that non-profits can struggle with, growing that really strong program. And you've just, I suppose, you're a success story in this way. So thank you so much for joining. It's just been so helpful. On the screen, everybody, I do have a QR code that you can scan, which is basically learning a little bit more about Rosterfy and enjoying a bit of a volunteer program health check with us and a bit of a strategy session as well. Doesn't have to be around coming on board with Rosterfy, but just a chance for us to help in terms of our sort of proven framework that we have and our learnings through supporting some of the world's leading volunteer programs as well, and supporting organisations like Gavin's here with the New Zealand Food Network. So please feel free to contact us if we can help in any way at all. And one final thank you to Gavin for joining and for giving up your time, because we know it's very valuable and we all appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
Awesome. This is my contact on the screen, everybody, in case you wanted to reach out and touch base. But otherwise, mā te wā, thank you so much for sharing your lunch break with us. And we hope to see you again on our next session, which I believe might be July 1st. I think that's the next Tuesday in July. So we look forward to seeing you then.